I'm Janet Sarbaugh from the Creativity Program at the Heinz Endowments. I got the long straw in terms of the introducer roles today because I get to introduce two extraordinary artists. Jeannie Perlman talked today about the artist's voice. She talked about the unique power of artists to speak truth to power. But now you're going to hear from two extraordinary artists who live and work in Pittsburgh and who do this work every day. And it's an extraordinary time for them to be talking to you. They're extremely important for Pittsburgh. They're extremely important for the nation and the world. And I don't think people in Pittsburgh know enough about their careers. And so I'll give you a little snapshot of each of them if you don't know the extent of their careers. First, Vanessa German. Vanessa's a sculptor, a painter, a poet, a writer, a performer, and an activist based in Pittsburgh's Homewood neighborhood. She creates work that explores the power of transformation, healing, and love. I heard her give a Creative Mornings talk one time where she said, "Someday, somewhere, somehow, someone must have sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chains of hate and evil and violence in this universe, and love is the only way you can do that." And her art really speaks to that. She's the founder of Love Front Porch and the Art House, community arts initiatives for the children of Homewood. Her work is in private and public collections across the country and has been featured in a variety of media, national media outlets. Vanessa is the recipient of the 2015 Lewis Comfort Tiffany Foundation Grant, a 2017 Jacob Lawrence Award from the American Academy of Arts and Letters, and she was named this year a United States Artist awardee. So that's Vanessa. And let me say a word about Jasiri X. If you visit Jasiri's website, you see the tagline that states his intention, his artistic intention, freeing minds one rhyme at a time. And in his artist statement, he says, "My art is activism. You cannot separate the two. Each artist has a civic duty. As an artist, I have connected with and embraced this inherent duty, thereby becoming personally involved and connected to communities throughout the world in the area of social justice." As you know, he's a hip-hop artist. He combines his musical talent and activism to effect social change. He's the co-founder of One Hood, a collective. Let's hear it. One Hood. One Hood is in the house. He's the co-founder of One Hood, which is a collective of socially conscious hip-hop artists and activists who utilize art as a means of raising awareness about social justice issues. And he's received a great deal of national recognition. He got an honorary doctorate from the Chicago Theological Seminary in recognition of his contributions toward bringing about justice and mercy in our society. He's a USA Nathan Cummings Fellow, a Robert Rauschenberg Foundation Artist as Activist Fellow. He's delivered keynote addresses and speaks on scholarly panels across the country, including colleges and universities such as Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Stanford, and many others. Those are the credentials of the two artists you're going to hear from today, but they're ours. They belong to us here in Pittsburgh. So let's welcome Jasiri X and Vanessa German. What's up?
Peace, peace. They say Jasiri X, you preach too much. I'm like, black people, we asleep too much. A racist president, so he doesn't speak for us. Another black body lynch is not unique to us. Meanwhile, Kanye's rocking Confederate flags. Jay-Z and Barney's going half on sweaters and bags. It's not their fault, it's ours. Are we measuring swag? They getting money, get money. What's better than cash forever and last? Riding in Berettas and Jaguar, don't crash. If you do any help, don't ask. Cause all Renisha got was a shotgun blast. Just for knocking on the door, left, right on the floor, I have her face gone. But no one was locked up like Akon. Black light, comes with no insurance like State Farm. Race wrong, black people, better put your brakes on. End up on that strange porch, end up in the same course, different city, same sport. It's not an accident when you hit the witness you aim for. Bullets left a face tour, victim of a race war. Make a nigga hate more, show up in that same door, let that 38 roar. Won't be my fate, Lord. Death from an officer who I ran to thinking it helped me would offer up. 10 shots to the chest, stretching and they chalking up. Another black man looking fresh and they coughing off. Being to my ribs crack, roll up in a gym mat, blow on my case match. Police say I did that. No crime, the kid's black, case closed, cactus shut, but take his organs, fill it with newspaper and patch him up. Now tell me if that bullshit is matching up. I know we just want to see it twerk and then back it up. But that's what happens when we make our rappers leaders and the most intelligent just want to be on TV featured and they give reality TV shows to preachers and we think activism is Facebooking and tweeting. 12 years of slavery, still fighting for freedom. Just look at the headlines, seeing is believing. Strange fruit, but now they cock and aim, shoot, yeah. Strange fruit, but now they cock and aim, shoot, yeah. Strange fruit, but now they cock and aim, shoot, yeah. The end result is just another slain youth, yeah. Renisha McBride, she got a name too. And Jonathan Farrell, he got a name too. Kendrick Johnson, he got a name too. Ayana Jones, she got a name too. Sandra Bland, she got a name too. Trayvon Martin, he got a name too. Oscar Grant, he got a name too. Alton Sterling, he got a name too. Philando Castile, he got a name too. Michael Brown, he got a name too. Antoine Rose, he got a name too. Pray to God that we'll never name you.
If my hands were anything other than hands, if my hands were anything other than hands, they would be two shooting stars galloping light across the galaxy. They would be a twin fandango of diamond-studded fingerprints hopscotching, a radiant neon merengue of light from each folded velvet edge of midnight into every tiny galaxy of 14-karat suns. My shooting star hands would reach and leap and turn the faces of every burning celestial pedestrian, star-grazed and gazing bright-eyed, amazed and awestruck as my shooting star hands whip by in a flurry of pirouettes, spitting sparks and spilling light, like each finger is a silver big flip lighter flicking flames of hope into the open faces of those twinkling pale and incandescent sisters whose tears glisten and litter the blistering avenue-like sequence. I say now, can you see it? How my shooting star hands would wow and bow them right out of their everyday orbits, turn their glowing dashboard Virgin Mary faces into an illuminated orchestra of rubies and gladiolas right before your very eyes. If my hands were anything other than hands, they would be a street corner jazz quintet. They would be a 10-fingered symphony of saxophones, trombones, clarinets, and trumpets, wailing rowdy, loud, and proud, right out from under my fingernails. The song would swell, and it would ring, and it would swing itself from lampposts and reach right into people's houses to bring mothers and sons come to dance in the middle of the street with fathers and daughters, and perhaps if my hands were a big bad jazz band, there would be no vicious, evil, cruel death on the avenue, because I would send my fingers flying in a furious hurricane of eighth notes to slap right into the faces of any slick-tongued, gun-toting mamma jamma who would come to steal my brother's breath. We would all just get to be delighted. And we would become an orchestra of glorious and joyful singing and dancing and happy and delighted black folks. If my hands were anything other than hands.
So, thank you all for having us. We definitely want to thank Pittsburgh Foundation and Heinz Endowment for giving us the opportunity to share a few words at this conference. We don't have much time. We were asked to kind of have a conversation around the First Amendment and what that means as artists. I think, for me, I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't, as Black Pittsburghers, kind of talk a little bit about what has happened these past 2 days in Pittsburgh. I mean, we had, we lost a young up-and-coming artist to gun violence, Jimmy Wapo, may rest in peace. And then the very next day, we find out that a 17-year-old child, Antoine Rose Jr., was shot 3 times in the back by a police officer right outside of Pittsburgh. So Vanessa, a lot of your work is informed by our community. You have a house in Homewood, right in our community. You do a lot of work with young people in our communities. Is there any, thoughts that you have on there, anything that we want to share with folks in the audience?
First thing, I would like if somebody in the booth could turn the house lights up a little bit so that we can all see each other. Thanks. It's very difficult for me because though I'm extremely fortunate to be an artist and to have so many tools of transformation and creativity that I can apply both intellectually and spiritually to anything that comes at me, it's devastating to consider how complete a loss. It's such a, I don't know how to reflect upon it because it's still happening. Sure. And it is so utterly final and horrendous and terrifying because the police are very scary as it is, and I can't not put myself in Antoine's shoes, but also now in the shoes of his family. The way that what happens when somebody dies and the funeral home says, you must choose clothes for them, and the fact that his people have to go through his closet and choose an outfit, like the last outfit, and that he lived his life confused and afraid. And in his own words, he said that. But what I can speak to is how devastating it is for kids. Like the kids at the art house. There's a girl who was Jimmy Wapo's cousin, who's going to perform at this graduation party today, and she's devastated. 12-year-old grief breaks a bone in your body or something. And so what I find is that, one, nobody really talks to kids about death.
True.
And is talking to them, because some of the kids at the art house, a couple of people were murdered outside of the art house. And the kids, we all saw the same thing. And the ways that I can tell that they don't have the resources to ingest that without becoming a little deformed. And so my reflection is just, I refuse to not feel, I refuse to not be grief-stricken, I refuse to have conversations immediately about how policing is a tough job. I don't entertain those conversations right now at all. I refuse to be easy and respectable and polite and to make it easy for other people to be in a space with the grief that the children have or anybody else. I refuse to silence a child's grief. But I believe thoroughly in the power of art, and I believe thoroughly in the power of love. And though it is not really well owned and written by books in the English language, my ancestors are always present with me. And I believe in the power of my people.
Thank you.
What is this like For you as a man, as somebody who, one, people don't expect you to cry.
Right.
They expect that you are also a professional activist.
True.
Like at some point you clock in and you clock out of caring and applying pressure and being strategic. So to have both your intellectual, what is it like for you intellectually, spiritually, politically?
Yeah, I kind of, a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of my, I kind of joke sometimes about, like, if you listen to my discography, it's like really angry, like I kind of say, like, if you play a whole bunch of Jasiri X, you might walk away with, like, shit's fucked up, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of my music is kind of talking about, and because a lot of it's out of anger.
Yeah, anger is the emotional expression of injustice.
Absolutely, so
it would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these different injustices, I'm seeing these things, and for me to write about them is therapeutic. It's like, to me, that's almost like how when I wrote about the death of Trayvon, I cried. I physically cried in writing that story and telling that story. And so for me, it even became getting the anger out of me. Using art, using hip hop for me, and writing it down to kind of get it out of me, because sometimes you can get so angry, you feel like you want to maybe do something that might be outside of yourself. But absolutely, I mean, I think in this, I feel similarly to you, like in this point, one, making sure that his family, and it's a shame that we always have to talk about our humanity as like black people or brown people. Like, to me, this is the craziness of, like, you remember when President Obama was elected, and it was kind of like this idea we're in a post-racial America, and it's like we're in an America where, like, we have to actually show people, like, a brown baby crying outside of a cage, like, for people to even begin to say, like, hey, that's wrong. And for some people wanted an administration that would put brown children in cages. There's people that want politically somebody that would allow a police officer to shoot and kill somebody and then get away with it. You know what I'm saying? So to also understand that there's that part about it, and the idea that, like, when something like this happens, the onus is on us, like, are you all going to be nonviolent? Like, before, like, his funeral hasn't even happened, but it's like, you all are going to be nonviolent, right? And it's like, well, how come that question is never asked to the individuals that are constantly killing us? Like, they're never asked about, we're not talking to the police about being nonviolent, over and over and over again, despite this. So for me, it is that feeling of anger, but also that feeling of, being somebody that's been an activist. I can't go to Ferguson and then something happens in Pittsburgh and I not show up and I not be present, and then I not, so there's also that part of me where I do feel like, as an activist, that I have a responsibility, and as somebody that has had experience, particularly to be on the ground, just to be there to say, if I see folks maybe getting to a point where they might cause harm to themselves, to kind of say, like, be careful, just because I've been in kind of this environment. So yesterday, I just went to East Pittsburgh just to be on the scene, but I'm on the scene really, like, looking to make sure that these young people that were there, these babies that were there, that nothing bad happens to them. Not to speak or hold a sign, but to try to, so it is that feeling of an activist, like, I gotta be in the space because I wanna make sure that nothing happens to these people that are there, to expressing themselves in expressing their anger, their rightful anger, And I do want to say, to also acknowledge that the sister who videotaped Antoine Rose's murder, that's journalism, that's media. You know what I'm saying? I know she didn't go to school or have credentials, but that is media. And without her doing that, and so I would like to see journalists and media members and people come around her and surround her and support her, because we've seen people who have videotaped incidences become victims themselves, unfortunately, in this society. And so, and the last.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Because the word support is used so often.
True.
Show us, tell, because all the journalists in this room, they might need to have a dimensional understanding of how they can come for that young woman? What does it look like?
Well, I think it looks like, one, making sure that, she's not a victim herself, making sure that, her story is told truthfully. I saw the article about Antoine in the Tribune Review, and how they framed it was him as charismatic, him as intelligent. This was like the headline. And I don't ever remember seeing, a young black man, even, oftentimes in depth, the media,
Jordan.
right, the media takes it to the other way, right? Jordan was a monster, Leon was a monster, Trayvon was a monster. I do a talk and I show a picture of Trayvon Martin, and then I show a picture of Adam Lanza. And most people don't even know who Adam Lanza, like, they look at the picture and I say, y'all know who this is. They don't even know his face. And I say, well, he's killed 31 people. Who did Trayvon Martin kill? Nobody. But Trayvon Martin was really criminalized more in the media.
He was murdered repeatedly
as a victim
in the media
than Adam Lanza. So to whoever, I would say to the media to, center the humanity of black and brown people the way you do anybody else. Adam Lanza's crimes, he killed 20 children. Of those 31 people were explained away as mental health issues. But oftentimes when it's black and brown people, it's,
affirmation.
There were guns in the cars.
Right.
He shouldn't have ran. Like, why did he run? What was happening? Like,
why did he say, I can't breathe?
Right. Absolutely. And so I just, and then I will say this to the media that, oftentimes, it's that, what's that adverb that as long as if the hunter tells the story, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The hunted.
The one who wins.
Yes. And so, oftentimes I see the story in the media is like the police perspective is written as fact and not as like this is according, even though time and time again there's been cases where the police story has been proven wrong, right? Like, it's okay, like,
do you feel safe saying that right now, being recorded?
I mean,
No, I mean, honestly, do you feel okay just saying oftentimes the police story is wrong? You didn't say that it's a lie.
Yeah.
You said it was wrong. How, you feel okay?
Yeah, but it is a lie. And, I was going to actually...
I'm asking you how you feel. Do you feel okay?
I do. My spirit, my mother named me Jasiri, means brave warrior. I'm going to, we all going to die one day. I mean, if when I took my first breath, I'm going to take the last one. I'm not going to go out afraid. I'm not going to go out fearful. I'm going to go out courageous. Like you said, those ancestors that are with me are saying, speak your truth, brother. You know what I'm saying? In the face of whatever power you see. I was going to ask, like, is there a media class that says you can't call somebody a liar? Like, is that a thing? Like, I don't know, because I didn't go to journalism school. Like, do they teach you that? Like,
sometimes you look legally what becomes slander at a certain point, or libel. So that's just another thing. But I think about how, I live in Zone 5. Yes. I live a block and a half down from where the police killed Mark Daniels.
Yes.
And they come around, they just walk into the garden, just walk into the art house. And it is, I remember when I bought my first house in Homewood, the woman who lived there, her son had gotten shot, and she said that then they put her on something called a snitch list. And that she had to move because her other kids were not safe. And so, I mean, just being in a city that's small, right, where the police are around. Like, they see me, I'll be up in Homewood, and they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, you're that lady who has the art house. And I won't recognize them or know them from anything. And I'm asking not to gauge the level or the quantity of fear that you have, but just recognizing that that you're public Your life is public. Our lives are public. And, you know, I have found 5 bodies. And I have had to testify in a homicide trial. My name was printed in the newspaper. I could not live at my own house. And I work very hard to feel safe. And I also strategically interact with the police. Like, I actually won't call the police if there's a shooting unless I see a body. And so it is, what I'm asking about are the secret survival skills. I'm asking about how you make it. And I recognize that our ancestors are strong with both of us.
Absolutely.
And we love other people. We love our children. We love our people. And while you may not be afraid, there's the recognition of how we move through the world.
Absolutely.
And so, if anything, I would say, how is it for you to move through the world as an artist who, you know, my philosophy as an artist is I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm a Black woman on this land. I was never supposed to have freedom and resources. I have them. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So for you, and being in that position, though, how have you gotten flack, pushback, and have you, what sort of ways have you had to maybe firm up other parts of your life to be okay?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm definitely somebody that is known for speaking truth to power, is known for, you know, doing music or doing songs or taking a position that, you know, might make some people feel uncomfortable and doing so unapologetically and, you know, understanding that there might be blowback, there might be pushback, you know, there might be, you know, I'm sure there are. You know, I just did a song called The Whitest House, which was my take on this administration, understanding that there might be people in here that are 100% behind Trump and the administration and what he does and sees, you know, what I do as a threat. I think, I feel like being very public is one thing because, you know, I am somebody that has, that people do know. So I think the understanding that, you know, if you know, I hope it's going to be a response, you know, and I'm, you know, we did a song, you know, with a group of other artists, If I Die Tonight, like, and I was kind of saying, I don't want no peaceful protest, like, something happened to me, like, you know what I'm saying, like, that's just my spirit.
People know me as, like, a very loving person,
Yeah.
and then we get to a certain part of the conversation, and I'm like, no, I actually believe in rebellion.
Yes.
And then it's quiet,
Yes.
they're like,
What?
Rebellion?
Yes.
What do you mean? I mean, like, I love the way forest fires work, how sometimes shit's got to burn down to crack the new seeds open. Like a Douglas fir seed don't break open until it gets all that heat on it. So I'm like,
and understand that
3 days of water, 3 days of food, enough medical supply.
And I always have to remind people, like, we live in a city where workers died. Like, workers fought and died to get people to have a 40-hour work week. Like, let's not pretend like it wasn't, you know, like there wasn't like violent protests that led to real change right here in Pittsburgh.
And
you go out to Homestead and you'll see they share like that history of those workers that perished so we could have a weekend, you know, with our family. So that's real. But I also think, like, being connected to an organization is also something for me, you know, being connected to a group, a larger group of people, because then for me as an artist, it's beyond me. And I feel like I've always tried to, you know, sometimes being an artist, you can, you know, center yourself in a sense. And, you know, it's, you know, you get on stage and you get claps, you get applause, you know, it's you know, it feeds your ego, but I feel like it's also more powerful for me to connect myself to an organization, one hood, where it's a group now. And similar to like what you're doing, like you're passing, I mean, you're doing really art therapy, if we wanted to give it a name.
You know, can I speak to that very quickly?
Please do.
I think about having the idea of therapy sort of being separate from your life. Like, I remember I spent time at Standing Rock and how there is innately in a community on the land,
Yes.
on the earth,
Yes.
that the ways that your life and breath and resources are organized is inherently therapeutic. That there is not this way that you have to walk out of your community and seek this external healing force, because the organized nature of living is inherently holistic and therapeutic. So people are always like, oh, you're doing art therapy. And I'm like, no, homie, I love myself. And I love, and I am asking a lot of love. And I am asking to be courageous enough to love. And as an artist, I feel like I am in service, and and so whether it's therapeutic
100%.
or not, so I feel like I like to speak, I'm starting to just speak of my life as an artist as a life of dimensional service, of service of the spirit and intellectual service. And so while it is, yes, it is therapeutic, but it is also not the externalization of therapy.
Yes.
It is that it rises up because we are connected and we love each other, and we're not going to leave each other when we hurt each other and make mistakes. We're not going to drag each other on the internet and try to assassinate each other's character. Like Will Holt's space. I had a little girl come up to me at the art house this week, and she came in and she looked so beautiful, and she hugged me. And last week I had to tell her, I said, yo, everything isn't a fight. You're really powerful. And she's like 8. And I said, you need to start deciding now how you will use that power. You need to decide every day this week, I want you to go home and I want you to think about it, or don't come back to the art house until you have.
Wow.
She came back this week, she looked totally different. She looked at me and she looked up and she hugged me and she goes, I said, did you think about it? And she said, every day.
Wow.
And so it is immersed in our connection.
Absolutely.
But go forth, art therapy, you're speaking.
No, I mean, I think, beautiful. And I think, like, also to understand, like, love is beyond, like, it's not just hearts and flowers that, like, the community expression that you saw folks outside of that courthouse in support of Antoine, well, that's love. That's love of humanity. And that, so, when I come, I feel like the song that I did, that's love. Like if I'm speaking
Everything
truth
you
to
do
power,
is love.
it's coming from a place of love. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not. And I say that to say, I remember being at, I was at the Student Achievement Center, and
that phrase.
That's what it's called, but this,
I've been there.
Right, the school in Pittsburgh that, students get sent to if they're, disruptive in their school. And I remember going in there, and the woman who she kind of approached me, and she was like, we've never done like a whole assembly. We've never done a whole assembly.
Listen, you have a panic button on stage.
Exactly. And I remember telling her, like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I've done this before.
And I'm not afraid of my people.
I love these young. So I get out there and I'm talking about hip hop, and we just engaging in a real some dudes is talking. I'm saying, like, do y'all rap? Like, come into this conversation. And so one of the students says, hey, didn't you do a video about Leon Ford? Oh, absolutely. Let me show it to you. And I showed them the video. And then another student said, well, didn't you do something about Trayvon Martin? Absolutely, and I showed the video, and I remember, and so the love was so powerful in the room. I'm giving everybody one hood information so they can get in contact with us, and the teachers came to me, and they were primarily white women, and the first one came up to me and said, I'm offended, and I said, good.
Right?
Good.
Go to the Lord in prayer.
Good. And the second one came up to me and she said, well, have you ever thought about, like, how come you don't talk about love, or you don't sing these, like, love songs? You ever talk about doing stuff? And I said, as soon as my people get justice, you're going to have some love songs from me. You know what I'm saying? But those songs are love songs.
They are.
Those stories to these young men and these women that have been brutalized, they come from a place of love. And so love doesn't always look like what you think it is. You know what I'm saying? And so I did just want to share that story.
And we are, like, I feel like I meet so many artists who have very strategic roles in the healing and true liberation of human beings. And I define liberty as the soul's right to breathe. And so I think about it like a surgery team. Like if somebody like completely breaks their arm, you don't just put the arm back together. You got to have a bone person, a tendon person, a muscle person, a skin person. And so while your love is like, yeah, this is love. It's not hearts and flowers, but it is love. And my love is sometimes very, very intentionally hearts and flowers. My love is sometimes very intentionally sweet. But when you put all of those tools and all of that love together, it is actually able to move the momentum of transformation forward. But without some hearts and sweetness, right? Without some rage, and without some people to actually pass out clipboards and take the names, it don't work, right? We need all of it.
I think that was a good point to end on.
I don't think we should ever stop.
We should never stop, because we're over time. Well, Vanessa German, y'all.
Jasiri.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thanks.